Hey guys, this is Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Today we're going to go over some college hoops best bets for Wednesday, February 23rd of 2022. So we had a huge day last night. We ended up going 5-1 on the posted plays, and I was so excited about those games. I posted the YouTube video about 10 o'clock the night prior, so hopefully you got that. Also, these plays that I go over with you guys, they don't necessarily agree with the models that I have on my cheat sheets. Those plays are completely different. If it does agree, I'll let you know. If it doesn't agree, I'll let you know that as well. But players in our premium group that go through the cheat sheets, they've found some different things that really pop for them. For example, we had one guy in the chat this morning that noticed teams with a 10% or greater edge, which you can see over here. The home teams went 8-0 against the spread last night, and the road teams were 4-1 against the spread. So little things like that, everybody has their own process of stuff that they do and they look at. But as always, if you want to try the cheat sheets out, they're free in our Facebook group on Thursdays, and usually another random day of the week I'll pop in there and just surprise post them to see if people are paying attention. But the link is in the description of the video. So we are going to run through the games for today, and I have, I believe, 8 plays that popped for me this morning when I was doing my research. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, as always, this is the point-wise sheet, so we'll take a look at some of the deals when we get done, and we can kind of show you what point-wise thinks as far as those games. And we have a tutorial for point-wise on the website if you would like to check it out. It's also in our YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and get started. So now flipping down through these list of games, I had a lot of games I thought I was really going to like, and I kind of crossed off for one reason or another, like the Duke-Virginia game, the line being only 5. That one originally jumped out at me, but then I crossed it off because Virginia played them really tight last time. I do like Providence -1 in this spot. Xavier on the road has struggled. I think they're about 50-50 against the spread. Providence, I think, is overrated. They're not going to do anything in the tournament, but I do like them at home tonight in this matchup. Coming down, one of the first games that popped up for me was VCU. So I was looking at this game, VCU and George Mason, and this is one of the conferences, the Atlantic 10, that I follow quite a bit, and VCU was -6.5, so I was kind of curious as to what, my sheet had. So as I'm flipping down here, this is going to be game number 21, and I put a number over here for the game, so anyone, if you're a premium member and you want to flip through and look at these games, you know which one to go to. So over here we got game number 21. So VCU, we can see both teams are really good against the spread. VCU is 16-9 ATS, 6-7 at home, so not great. Geo Mason is 6-4 on the road, so they're kind of so-so. But what I like is that they're 18-7. They're still 9-4 at home, which is really good. And over here for the adjusted offense and defense, everything kind of blends together except for the VCU defense, where they have the number 5 defense in the land. Now, our model has it about VCU -7. The spread is 6.5. So that's one of the things that our model doesn't necessarily agree with. Typically, for a model play, I look for a large difference in spreads. But looking at this, what I love about this game, so they're playing George Mason at home. I want to look and see, have they played George Mason in the past? And in this case, they have, and it was on the road. So typically, if I see a team beat them at home and now they're going on the road, I'm a little skeptical because that line should move the other way. But they went on the road and won the game, and now they're back at home, and typically teams are better at home for the most part. And in this game, it was just on February 12th, so not too long ago, and they beat them 85-70. So they beat them pretty good. They've won 5 straight. They've also knocked off Fordham, Richmond, Rhode Island, and, well, that game doesn't even count. This team's awful. But in this game against George Mason last time, I like to look at the first half and the second half spread, because my first half strategy, you'll see me write that a lot. What I typically do is, if there's a line in that sweet spot of like 9-14, I don't like laying that many points, but I'll hit the first half, because the first half I can usually get between 4 and 8. And then if by some chance that game is tied at halftime, I'm going to go back with a second half hammer. A good example last night was, who was it? I was talking to someone in the chat about it. It was one of the, Toledo. They were, I think, -7, 7.5 first half. And the second half, they outscored. It was a 5-point game. Toledo was up at the end of the first half, I believe. And in the second half, they outscored them 51-14. So they absolutely annihilated. So those teams that are stronger, even if they get off to a slow start, I like to either give myself a quick win or come back with a second half hammer. So in this case, VCU, when they played last time, they were up 40-30, and this is going to be hard to see on your screen, but they were plus 10, and then they were plus 5 in the second half. So what I'm looking for here is to see what was it like at the end of the first half. So they were plus 10, so they outscored them by 10 points on the road. Well, we're only laying 6.5 for the game, so obviously that's a play that we do like. So the first play we had is VCU minus 6.5. I'm not going to do a first half play on that because winning by 7 is a fair number. Now going down to the second play, when I was coming through here and scrolling down, let's find it. The number 2 play was Wake Forest. So Wake Forest is on the road, but I thought it was curious that they were only laying 3. So when I come over here, this is game number 11. So we can see here Wake Forest is phenomenal against the spread across the board. They're 61% ATS on the season, and they are 7-2 for 78% against the spread on the road. So that's phenomenal. Now Clemson, you can see here their straight up record. They're 2-8 on the road. They suck, but at home they're 8-5, so they're much better. They're decent, 7-5 against the spread, so that's not terrible. So I expect this to be a little smaller line, which minus 3 makes sense. Looking at the adjusted offense and defense, Wake Forest has a slight edge on offense, a very large edge on defense, but they are on the road, but they've been really good on the road. So I'm leaning Wake Forest here, and our model has this about 4.5. So we're laying minus 3. Our model has 4.5. Not a huge difference. This wouldn't be a model play, so to speak, but it is a game that I do like when I go dig into the game log. So looking here at Wake Forest, they didn't have any games against Clemson. But looking at some of them, Wake Forest is 4-2 in their last 6 games. They did lose these 2 games, but what I like is they hung within 2 points of number 9 Duke, and then they beat a really good Notre Dame team by 5, so those were impressive wins. NC State, Florida State, those games don't really matter. I'm just looking to see that they won, so nothing there too impressive. And then I want to take a look at Clemson and kind of see how they've done at home and overall. So you can see here, Clemson's lost, the screen's jumping around. Clemson's lost 6 games in a row. So they lost to Duke. They got killed by Duke, so they lost by 18, and Wake Forest just hung within 2. So I like that. That's a feather in the cap for Wake Forest. And then Wake Forest just beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's been pretty decent. They're pretty pesky, and they beat Clemson 76-61, so they beat them by 15. And that was at Clemson. So those 2 things right there kind of give more of an edge to Wake Forest in my mind. And then my model also has them covering it. So that's kind of how I come to that spread. So the second play that we like is going to be Wake Forest minus 3, which I thought was kind of a low spread. And then moving on down the list, instead of finding them in here, I'm just going to go to where they're at on the sheet. So this was game number 20. And now we're getting into the A10 conference, which is one of my favorite, and we have Dayton against UMass. I love that Dayton's at home. Now they're 19-8 versus UMass 12-13, so obviously much better team, much higher in the A10 conference, but I love that Dayton's 11-4 at home. They're doing really well against the spread here. When I look at this, I look at the overall and then home road. Nothing really pops. They're between 45 and 60%. So I'm really looking for anything that's green or red. So you can see like the green and the red. So if it's 16 above or 40 and below, it highlights red or green. So when I'm scrolling through here, I can quickly pick up trends. You can see Dayton's got a much better adjusted defense. UMass is 334 versus Dayton 34. And our model loves this play. Our consensus line here is Dayton minus 15.5. And they're laying 12. And then my play here is going to be Dayton first half minus 6.5. So let's go take a look at some of the Dayton games and see what we got here. So Dayton, you can see they've won 7 of the last 8 games. They're number 2 in the Atlantic 10. And so they should be motivated for a win in this spot. UMass is 4-4 in the last 8 games. They're up and down. But what's really... So I don't know how to pronounce this name. We'll just call him DeQuise. I don't know. I can't pronounce it. So this is a team we've made a lot of money picking on, and that's going to be the next play we go to. But Dayton just absolutely annihilated them, 75-54, as most teams do. And then they just beat UMass. So UMass lost to, we'll call it DeKeese, and George Washington in their last 10 games. And Dayton beat those two by 26 and 20 points. So Dayton can do whatever they want in this game. I'm just hoping for a hot start just to be up by 7 at halftime, which I don't think is a problem. And then let's look at UMass real quick. Those were the notes I had, but I'll go ahead and show it to you. So they're kind of win-loss, 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 nothing great. But this game against the Keys, or however, I got to figure out how to pronounce that dang thing. It's driving me nuts. They lost 78-74 to them. It was quite a while ago. It was in early January, but still, that's a pitiful loss. They lost to Rhode Island, who was struggling. They played decent against St. Louis one game and then got annihilated the next game. George Mason, they lost by 10, and that's a team that Dayton's already throttled. So those are some of the things that I look for. So the third play that I have is going to be, where'd we go? It's going to be Dayton minus 6.5 first half. Sorry, I lost place there. All right, let's go on to, we'll speed this up a little bit. Let's go to play number 4, and that's going to be Davidson over DeKeese. We're just going to call it that because I have no idea how it's pronounced. This is right below it. It's going to be game number 22 in the Atlantic 10. And they are absolutely horrible. They're 6-19 on the year. At home, they have a massive 1-11 ATS. So they've only covered 8% of the time or one time. If you look at their adjusted offense and defense, they're bad. 272 and 260. They're not real solid. And the model loves this one. We've got Davidson by 19 on the road. The spread here is only 8.5. So we've got this covering by more than twice what the actual spread is. Davidson, we want to look and see how they are. They're 22-4. They're 8-2 on the road, 11-1 at home. So they're good at both places. They're really good against the spread, 15-10. And on the road, they're even better, 7-3 for 70% against the spread. So we really like Davidson in this spot, minus 8.5. And this isn't even a play where you got to do a first half line. 8.5 is a small number here. This is one of my more favorite plays. Davidson's typically really good at home, but they've been decent on the road, so I like that. You can see the offenses. So we're going to have Davidson's number 12 offense going against the 260th defense. They should be able to score a lot of points here and not have any issues. Going back, looking at the game logs here, you can see they're first in the A10. They actually just beat a really good St. Louis team, 79-58. I was really shocked at that game. I didn't think Davidson stood a chance. And they actually just played them and beat them 72-61. So they just beat them and covered the spread. Now the trick here is they beat them at home, and now they're going on the road. But in this game, I don't think they were really motivated. They probably knew they were going to win, so I want to look and see what they were at the half. It's hard for you to see this, so Davidson was up by 11 at the half, 39-28. And then after being up 11, they pretty much kind of shut it down, coasted the second half, and it was 33-33. So them covering 9 points I don't think is out of the realm. A first half to me is almost a lock, but I just took the 8.5 just to be safe. And then without getting into the actual games, it's an obvious play. I'm not really going to get into it a lot. Let's go on to the next one. So Chattanooga is one that came up, and this was game number 29 on the cheat sheet. So here we got Chattanooga. They're ranked number 80. They're 22-7, 11-4 on the road. No one's really great against the spread. East Tennessee State is not good against the spread at home or on the road. They're both sub 30 or sub 40% against the spread. Our model has this at Chattanooga minus 9 to 9.5, somewhere in that range. So I was shocked when I was scrolling down and I saw that they were only minus 3. So that kind of interested me. I wanted to go in and take a look at it. Here you can see not a lot of differences for offense, defense. East Tennessee State's 292nd defense is kind of alarming. But looking at it, they only need to win by 3. So we come down here, and we're looking at the Chatty game logs. And so I want to see, have they played East Tennessee State before? So we're going to scroll up here, and they did, but it was back on December 30th, so it was a few weeks ago. But you can see here they won this game by 30. They beat them 82-52. So that is kind of eye-opening for me. And they won 4 games in a row, and then I don't know what happened, but they lost to UNC Greensboro by 3 at home, and then they lost to VMI by 5. So they've lost 2 games. They really need to get a win here if they want to stick with this number 1 ranking in the Southern Conference. So they should be motivated to win here. They're coming off 2 losses. They need a win. They're clearly the better team. And then this game back here when they beat them by 30, they were up 43-30 at the half, and then they kept rolling them in the second half, 39-22. So Chattanooga -3 at East Tennessee State is one that we're going to go after. And let me show you what East Tennessee State looks like, what their game logs. And so I didn't make anything in my notes on it, so let's go ahead and just take a look at it real quick. So East Tennessee State, you can see they've won 2 games, but then they've just been getting throttled. They managed to beat Furman by 4 and Citadel by 10, and then they lost pretty much every other game. So on that one, we like Chattanooga to get back on track. They need a big win here. Moving on, SMU is going to be the next game. This is game number 15 on the cheat sheet. So looking at game number 15, we got Tulsa at SMU. Now, Tulsa hasn't been bad. They're 9-16, 1-8 on the road. Against the spread, they're only 33% on the road, so that kind of leaned me over to the SMU play. SMU is a solid 19-6. Their power rankings more than 100 spots better, but at home, they are dominant. They are 13-0. Against the spread, they're only 7-6, but the 13-0 really jumps out. So we know there's a very high likelihood they are going to win this game. Now it's just a matter of how many points do they win this game by. So you can see our spread here. We have it 12.5 to 13. I would say we have SMU -13. I think the game they were -10.5. So first half line's going to be, I got it at -6. So SMU -6 first half is going to be a play that I'm going to go after. And then let's take a look at their game log. So they're second in the American Conference. So if they have a shot to get into first, I didn't look, but I'm assuming they're going to need to win these next couple of games. Now what's impressive about SMU, when you're looking at these games, they've won 3 of the last 4. And they're playing Tulsa tonight, which is really an unranked team. They've got Houston on deck. But, you know, they lost to Temple on the road. ECU they beat on the road. Wichita State they lost on the road. And then they won against South Florida on the road. But look at the home game. So they beat Memphis, and Memphis is a really good team this year. They beat them 73-57 at home. And then they also beat, at the time, number 6 Houston at home, 85-83. That was a huge win. And then prior to that, they beat Temple. No big deal. So they've played really good at home. Tulsa hasn't really done anything. One of the things that did jump out at me, they're 10th in the American Conference, so they have no motivation to win here. You can see they've lost, oh my word, I can't even count these this quick in my head. They've lost a whole bunch of games. They did beat South Florida, whoop-dee. They beat a bad Cincinnati team, and then they turn around and they beat South Florida again. Other than that, this loss to UCF, East Carolina, and Temple are kind of alarming for me. East Carolina and Temple are not very good. UCF, I'm going to say they're not very good. But losing those games to those teams is kind of eye-opening. And now they're going to go on the road to SMU, who's motivated to win. I think a first half play at 6 is almost a lock there. So SMU hasn't been great to me against the money. They've been great on paper, but not when I've bet them. So I just did a normal unit on that. And then let's move on here. We have 2 more plays I want to go over. So one of them is Butler, and this is going to be game number 7 in the cheat sheet. So Butler, Seton Hall. And I took this game right off of point-wise. It wasn't even on my radar. Didn't even look at it. Wasn't even thinking about it. And then when I was flipping through the point-wise sheet, I typically look. Actually, no, I didn't. I take that back. The next game that I took off the point-wise sheet. So Butler here, they're not very good, but Seton Hall is 11-3 at home, but they're only 6-7 against the spread. Butler on the road is 6-3 against the spread for 67%. Now, if you look at the paper, this looks like a clear Seton Hall play. The line's 9.5. Our model has Seton Hall -13.5, so our model actually likes Seton Hall at home to get a win here. Now, Seton Hall could crush this game, and I wouldn't be shocked. So just take it into consideration if you want to bet this. I have not bet it at this time, but I'll probably put it in my I always do a big long shot parlay of 5 or 6 teams. But Butler's been scrappy. They took number 8 Providence into overtime and end up losing by 1. They beat DePaul 73-71, and Seton Hall also just played DePaul and only beat them by 2. And then they beat number 18 Marquette 85-79. So if you're on the fence with this game, I would lean over to Butler. And kind of what we just went over, they beat DePaul, and then DePaul played a tight game with Seton Hall, so both of them played them really tight, each one by 2. Butler also beat Marquette. It was at home, though, but that's a big win there. And then they got crushed by St. John's, so if they got blown out in this game, I wouldn't be shocked. But with them hanging with DePaul, getting the win, beating Marquette, and then taking Providence into overtime, who was ranked number 8, that's a big win there. So in their last 4 games, they've hung with 2 top 25 teams, and now they get Seton Hall on the road, and they're catching 9.5 points. So I was shocked. I figured, this line would be 6, 5.5, 6, 6.5, maybe 7, but I think it opened at 10 and it's down to 9.5. So 9.5 points is a lot for this Butler team. So I'm kind of leaning on that one. I'm liking it more and more as I talk about it. And then let me go ahead and give you this last play. So Boston College, this is the one that I pulled off of point-wise. So I typically run through the point-wise sheets. I go through my sheet. I pick out all my games, I look at the game logs, and then I go look at point-wise and say, okay, what do they think? Do they like it? Do they not like it? Do they agree? Do they disagree? So looking down at some of these games, they've got VCU by 3, so they don't really necessarily have them covering the spread like I do. The Virginia-Duke game, they played it close. I already X'd that one off. They actually have Virginia winning this game, which I don't think happens. And then going down here, so Boston College, NC State. So this one jumped out at me because Boston College was a +6 dog, and it was one of their best bets. So I was curious. I was like, well, let's go take a look at it. So on our sheet, it's game number 31. So taking a look at game number 31 here. So we've got NC State by 4. So we're getting a small edge with Boston College getting 6. Nothing on the sheet really jumps out at me, but NC State is not that good. They're 11-16. Boston College is 10-16. So both teams are bad. So, why not take the 6 points here? Hey, shush. Sorry, dog was barking. So in this spot, I'm going to take... be quiet, buddy. Sorry. So I'm going to take Boston College +6. Might do a little money line sprinkle on it. But one of the things that jumped out at me when I'm looking at this, if my dog had quit barking, they just beat Florida State 71-55. And then they've also... Oh, I lost track of my notes here. So right now, Boston College is playing slightly better. They're coming off of a win against FSU, which you can see here, 71-55. And 3 games ago, they took a tough Notre Dame team into overtime, and that was on the road, so that was impressive. And then they stayed within 9 points of Duke, ultimately losing 72-61. So I think Boston College is playing really good right now. So they hung with Duke within 9 points. I'm going to say that's pretty decent. They went into overtime on the road against Notre Dame. They got blown out by Syracuse. Okay, that happens to bad teams. And then they just beat Florida State. So Boston College is playing decent. So I think they were 1-6 over the last 7 games, but it was an impressive 1-6 if you can say that. And then NC State, they're 1-7 over the last 8 games. Now they just beat Georgia Tech, but what jumped out at me is they got killed by Wake. They lost to Notre Dame not once but twice. They got beat by 8 here, and then they got beat by 12 here. And that's a team that BC just took into OT on the road. So I give a slight edge to Boston College. I don't mind a money line play there. I didn't look it up and see what it is, but they're +6, so we should be able to get something pretty good. One set +175, +180. But those are the games that I have today. I'm going to post a screenshot of these 4 plays. So we have VCU -6.5. We have Wake Forest -3. We have Dayton. I'm going -6.5 for the first half. And then we have Davidson -8.5 for the game. And then we had Chattanooga -3, SMU -6 first half, Butler +9.5, And then I'm going to go Boston College money line play and take a look at that. So that's what I got. Sorry the video was a little bit longer today, but I wanted to go through and kind of thoroughly explain each game. Yesterday, I love those games. I was so excited. I wrote them up the night before, and I just couldn't wait. The games today are so-so. I think there's some good plays, but nothing that I think is going to be a lock by any means. But that's what we got for Wednesday. So we're back in action with NBA tomorrow. So let's go make some more money in college. We're coming off a 5-1 night. So make sure to subscribe down below, and that you'll get all our content. Thanks, guys.